You're listening to the Vibrant Happy Women podcast. I'm Dr. Jen Riday, and on this episode, we'll be answering the question, what does it really mean to be authentic? Stay tuned. All right, everyone, I am here with an old friend, not old in age, but old in many years ago, Amber Price, who used to live in Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm super excited to talk with her today. We're going to talk about being authentic, being true to yourself, ending the comparison and the people pleasing so we can all really essentially be our best selves and share our gifts and talents with the world. So Amber, welcome, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I think you summed it up perfectly. We're old friends, but I am a little bit old too.
Yes, me too.
I'm not really, but I've been going to school for a little bit with 20-year-olds and I'm in my 40s, so I do feel a little bit old. But anyway, I'm Amber and I am a mom of 4. I live currently in Utah, and I am working on a PhD at BYU out here in marriage, family, and human development. I got my master's in April and now I'm working on the PhD and studying what you said. You summed it up perfectly. Kind of my catch-all phrases would be authenticity and connection and how those two go hand in hand, or fight against each other if we're not doing them.
Yeah, it's huge for me. In fact, before we even turn on the microphone, and what I've heard my listeners say is I'm very authentic. Sometimes to my detriment, I cackle and I say weird, awkward things sometimes. So why is being authentic so important, Amber?
I was just going to say, yes, you are authentic. You are somebody who I think of as authentic. In my own memories of you are like, Jen is who she is, and she just says what's on her mind. And it makes it easy to connect with you. You and I have barely talked. I moved away from Wisconsin, 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we talked on the phone not too long ago, like a few months back, but it was the first time we talked in a while. And it just felt so natural and easy to talk to you because I know that you're comfortable with who you are. And so that connection just flows naturally. And I think that's the point of authenticity. When we are comfortable with who we are, we're willing to share who we are with another person. We're willing to let them see us for who we are. We're not, if somebody's not comfortable with who they are, they're going to kind of put up a wall and hide who they really are. And you just can't get that connection that you would otherwise get. You really can't connect with someone who won't let you see who they really are.
Ooh. Okay, so my brain's like, but wait, I haven't always really liked myself, but my mom taught me to be real, like to just put it out there. But so you're saying if you like yourself, you don't have to totally be enamored with yourself. Like, where's the line where you're real, but maybe you still have sometimes negative self-talk, for example?
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the best parts of authenticity is that it's knowing who you are, but as part of that, it's knowing what your weaknesses are too, and being okay that you have weaknesses. Of course, like being authentic means not being blind to the things that you are falling short on, and then being willing to work on them. Mm-hmm. Being willing to say, oh, I can see this flaw in myself. I'm okay that I have that flaw because I am a human being. Human beings are flawed. Okay, but I do want to work on that in myself.
That's true. And I do that. I don't hide anything. It's like, oh yeah, I'm weird. Okay, I do hide a couple things because they're just so ridiculous. Anyone who knows me from high school knows what I'm talking about. The Molly Brown story. It's mortifying. It can never get out. Anyway,
now everybody's gonna want to know.
It involves poop. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay. So, authenticity is huge. Brene Brown talks a lot about it. Tell us what you've been finding out recently in the research about authenticity.
Oh, there's so much. It's like where to even begin. But I mean, authenticity, like I said, my focus with authenticity specifically is connection with others. So, I mean, I'm in a program that studies marriage and family. So my focus tends to be around that, but of course it's going to impact your marriage or your relationship with, your partner. It's going to impact your parenting and the way that you can connect with that, with your children. It definitely impacts your sexuality.
Hmm.
A sexual relationship is highly intimate, highly vulnerable. So if you can't be authentic, it's going to be a challenge to really
Ooh, that's tricky.
engage in that relationship. Yeah, I know that's the hard one,
Every
right?
woman sitting here like, what? I'm supposed to be proud of my stretch marks and belly? And
Yeah.
so authenticity means what? We're like, yeah, here I am. And when we're
Ideally,
talking about
yeah,
sex.
right?
Oh my gosh, I have work to
But
do.
let's like be honest, like all of us have a ways to go, right? I
Mhm.
absolutely have a ways to go.
Mhm.
And I study this day in and day out, and I recognize that, yeah, I'm flawed too. And I struggle with body image and things like that too.
Mhm.
But again, I recognize that in myself, and that's okay.
Wow. So, how are you teaching your kids to be authentic? I've always remembered you, Amber, as a fantastic mom. First of all, you must have tremendous energy because the amount you got done in a day was triple what I felt like I could get done in a day. And that's kind of saying a lot, really.
It's
So,
funny because I would have said that about you too. Like
no way, no
high
way, no
energy for
way.
sure. Yeah.
Uh, okay, your high energy was productive high energy. Mine was constant. Yeah, no. So, how are you teaching your kids to be authentic? You know, as a mom who is highly productive.
Boy, I don't know. That's a good question. I think more than anything, wouldn't teaching somebody to be authentic mean just being authentic?
Yeah.
Hopefully letting them see my own struggles, letting them know that I'm not perfect as a mom. They definitely know that. Apologizing when I fall short. I mean, my boys are so sick of hearing me talk about all of this because I do talk about it all the time, but I hope that it's rubbing off on them, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
One thing I do think with them that comes up quite a bit is comparison.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a natural thing. You know, I have a 14-year-old and I feel like he especially is always saying, me and my friends were talking about who has it harder, boys or girls, because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, why does it matter? Like, why do we have to draw that comparison? You are you. Your friend who's a girl is who she is. You both have experiences that are good. You both have experiences that are hard. It is what it is. Like, we don't have to do that comparison thing,
Mhm.
although it feels natural. But anyway, so that's a conversation that's had a lot in our house.
Oh my goodness. So so true. Ooh, I want to come back to that topic of comparison. So, but first sticking with authenticity, um so authentic is being the true you. Let's talk about the alternative, the opposite really. Have there been times in your life where you didn't truly reveal the true you? And maybe you sharing them will help us recognize them in ourselves or stories
Yeah.
of other women if you have those as well.
Yeah. I mean, where to even begin? Like, I can think of a million different little things. What comes to mind first? So, one of the things I really like to talk about or research or look into is like ways that we're kind of hindering our own authenticity. And one of those, from a scholarly perspective, you'd call it emotional fusion. I think that, like, from a more general term, maybe we'd call that like codependence, or just maybe kind of like when we rely on other people, like our relationships with other people to define who we are as part of our identity. So I think
Wow.
we do it sometimes as wives, you know. I think we definitely do it as moms. I'm so and so's mom, and that's who I am. Um, and that can be harmful. I mean, it's wonderful to be the wife and it's wonderful to be the mom, but if that's your whole identity, it can become damaging. But for me, I had a relationship, and it was not a romantic relationship. It was a friendship that had started to kind of suck who I was right out of me. I identified
Whoa.
so closely with this relationship. Like, it was so important to me to be part of that relationship, and there were so many rules around that relationship. It wasn't a healthy relationship, but there were so many rules and things around it that I started to try to morph who I was to make sure that I wasn't going to break a rule or, do
Wow.
something, take a
Yeah.
misstep. And I really felt like I started to lose a little bit of who I was. Like, I, I almost couldn't even remember who I was anymore in some ways because I was being so careful to be what this person thought I should be.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
huge.
that was a rough one.
Wow. How did you recognize you were doing that? Was it an energetic thing? Did you just kind of start to feel lousy? Like, what's the
Yeah,
cues or the
yeah.
signals for that?
I mean, the truth is, I didn't notice it as well as I should have. It went on for a number of years. There were a lot of tears in my life relating to it, and I am not a crier. Like, I cry about a few occasional things, but in general, not. And so that should have been a major red flag to me. The truth is, I didn't really see it until the relationship ended for other reasons.
Oh.
And then I looked back on it and I was like, oh my word, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And honestly, that's probably a lot of what spurred my interest in this field, in this research and into authenticity and genuine connection, because that's not genuine connection, you know?
Yeah. Well, so my mind is totally circling, like, when have I not been authentic? I think in high school, we all try on so many identities that we have no clue. We're just trying on clothes, essentially.
Yeah.
But at some point, there were people I recognized I felt good around and people I would end up feeling drained around. So I had a friend, a mutual friend, I think. I won't say any names.
I already think I know who you're going to say.
Yeah. So
anyway.
I felt like I should be a good friend and it was the right thing to do from some external measurement of I should, she needs. But at some point I had to come to terms with the fact that I didn't feel good around her. I felt drained and empty and like I was always trying to keep her happy. Kind of similarly, I was trying to do it to be nice, not to prove something to her, but at some point I had to start taking care of what felt good to me. So I suppose maybe there's do you have, is there research or your own thoughts on authenticity? It feels good to us. Is that true?
Yeah, it does for sure. I think we know it when we feel it, right? Like we know the things, I don't know. I think if you can think about what are the things you do that make you feel most alive, that make you feel most who you really are, those are the times that you're being authentic, right? And it might take a little while to sit back and think, what are those things? When do I feel most authentic? When do I feel most content with who I am and things like that? Probably it's going to be around people who you love and feel that connection with, because you do feel like you can be yourself when you're around them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, for me, I love to be around other people and have really good conversation, like really connective conversation. That to me feels very authentic.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the same for every person. You know, I think most of us probably enjoy good connection, good connecting conversation and things. Some of us might want only one person there. Some might want more, whatever it is. But you know, those times where you're like, boy, that just like filled my soul.
Yes.
That's when you're being authentic.
Soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not draining. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, the things that make you feel alive. What would those things be for you? Just a little list.
I just said one.
Hot chocolate.
Probably. Yes. Hot chocolate. Honestly, I drink it every single day, even in July. In July, I sit on my back deck at like 9:00 at night. It's still usually pretty hot and I drink my hot chocolate and I love it. And I realize that's weird.
Or do you like a certain brand? Yeah. Homemade.
Yeah. I use the Nesquik sugar-free. It's not even good stuff and I love it.
Easy. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other things that make you feel alive, I think it will spark us to think about what might that be for me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I said the being around people, you know, I went to lunch yesterday with a friend. I love that. I love sitting and talking to a friend. That's one of my absolute favorite things.
Yeah.
Honestly, in my parenting, it's baking. Being in the kitchen with my kids for me is a favorite. Reading with my kids is a favorite. And again, these are things that might not be for other people, but they are for me. That's my authentic self. I think that when I went back to school, so I went back to school right about 3 years ago, and I was surprised how much that opened me up. Just to, like, there I was. That was my authentic self. I loved the learning. I loved engaging in it. I was like, I just refound myself. And again, that's not going to be the truth with everyone. It's going to be something different for everyone, but that was it for me. I just love it.
Refinding myself. That phrase, it's a mom thing. Losing yourself and finding yourself. What is it about parenting that made you or makes women in general lose a piece of themselves?
Oh boy, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. I think that we get so trained in our brains to think that we have to give and give and give endlessly. And there, of course, there's beauty in sacrificing for your kids and for your family and things like that. I'm not saying to not do that, but we think that we have to just give up who we are in the daily tasks. And it's easy to do that because there's always something on the to-do list, right? Always, always, always. And 10 things that you're leaving undone. And so we forget to take care of ourselves or to remind ourselves. I I had a friend stop by. It was a couple years ago, and she was kind of in between jobs, kind of trying to figure out what she wanted to do. She'd been working in one and had another opportunity. And I remember I asked her, I can't remember exactly what I asked her, but just like, what do you want? What are your desires? And she just started to bawl. And she was like,
Oh,
I don't know. I just don't even remember. I don't know anymore. And
wow.
I just thought, I don't think she's alone in that. I think a lot of us do
No.
that as we sacrifice for our families. And
Huh. Did you ever have a moment when you realized you had started to sacrifice too much and you like put a stop to it and said, okay, I'm starting to do these things for myself? Like,
yeah,
I feel like every mom has that moment or
I
should.
do. And I feel like, maybe this doesn't line up perfectly, but a moment comes to my mind instantly when you say that. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was mopping our kitchen floor, and I was grumpy. And I just kind of was pondering on that. And I thought, I'm grumpy because I feel like everybody around me is grumpy. One of my kids is being grumpy. I don't even remember who was grumpy that day or whatever, but they were being grumpy. And I realized in that moment, like, I'm only allowing myself to be happy when everybody else around me is happy.
Ooh.
In essence, I'm
Oh
taking
no.
responsibility for their
Yeah.
moods, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it was bringing me down. And that was the moment I knew something needed to change with myself. I needed to
Yeah.
take responsibility for myself and
Yeah.
not for the people around me.
And that's what you call emotional fusion or codependence.
Yeah, that would be. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's a perfect example of it.
Wow. Being responsible for someone else's happiness and not just your own.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And
My,
yeah.
go ahead.
Anyway, no, I don't even, that wasn't going to be a coherent thought. Go ahead.
For me, I had to get to a point of so much misery and pain that things had to change. So that came
Mm-hmm.
on. I had a miscarriage on Christmas
Right.
Day, and it was awful. And after that, I remember vowing, I literally vowed I was going to put my happiness first. And I had never even thought of that concept before. So I don't even think I was to the place where I wasn't going to worry about other people's happiness, but at least mine was going to finally come first.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
didn't care who I hurt in the process. I had to, or I wouldn't really didn't want to be alive anymore at that very moment, you know? And so I
Mm-hmm.
started the yoga and just noticing
Mm-hmm.
what feels good. And then here we are, you know? Like, I love talking to you too. Just like you said, you love talking to women. I found something I love and podcasting.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. My other things that make me feel alive would be pickleball. That's been really
Oh,
weird.
fun.
I was a high school and even a college athlete, not D1 or anything, but D3 C team. But and there's this competitive side that I had totally lost and it
Mm.
started to come alive and I didn't know it was in there. Kind of like what you were saying. There are pieces of you that have come alive. So pickleball, board games, and other
Mm.
things have fallen away that I thought I should want, which is like I need to travel all the time because successful people travel. Well,
Mm.
I hate airports. No thanks. I don't want to look at architecture. So I think authenticity comes back to what feels good and then
Yeah.
choosing it over and over. So,
I really like that. Yeah. That reminded me a little bit of, it was a few years back. I can't remember, like 3 or so years ago. I knew I wanted to make some changes in my life. And so I decided September was going to be my get out of your comfort zone month.
ooh,
Like I actually dubbed it that. And I started the month out really with just small changes. Like somebody asked me to lead the music at church. I had never done it. I really didn't want to, but I was like,
oh
hey, I'm
boy.
getting out of my comfort zone. I'm going to do that. And,
Yeah.
I had a certain type of sweater. Okay, this is silly, but I really like the cardigans that go like all the way down to your knees.
Yeah.
But I had never worn one because it just felt a
Oh,
little gutsy, which is silly. But I was like, I'm going to do it. So I bought one and I wore it. It's my favorite sweater now. And anyway, I just did a few things like that. And as I did it, that's actually the month that I ended up deciding to go back to school. And I was in the process
wow.
of applying by the end of the month, but it was like just trying those new little things all of a sudden sort of opened my eyes to like the possibilities and things.
Wow. Your brain was like, oh, if she can do the knee
Mm-hmm.
sweater, what else can she do? You were going
Yeah.
back to school.
Yeah. It was a crazy month.
What was that like going back to school? I mean, that's way out of the comfort zone. You were in grad school with 20-year-olds, like you said,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
mom of four, and
Mm-hmm.
woo, that had to be scary, right?
It was scary. It's honestly, it's still scary. Every single day, it's scary. I've thought a lot about it. And I think the word inadequate sums it up. I feel inadequate more often than I wish I did. And I think it's probably my least favorite way to feel. But I just plow through it. I mean, I feel inadequate for a moment of each day. And then the rest of the day, I enjoy it, And so I just continue forward, and it's hard, but it's been great. And again, like, I think maybe authenticity, it's not the final solution. Like, life isn't going to all of a sudden be all roses and sunshine just because you're being authentic. It's still going to have all of the challenges. It's still, school's still hard. Doing what I'm doing is still hard, but it feels so much more right because I'm being authentic to who I am as I do it.
And I think what you said, like, I don't remember your exact words, but it's uncomfortable. You might have moments of where you think, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate. I think that's your word. But there's also another voice in your head that's saying, I'm going to do it anyway. This is important. So like for me, one of my biggest sources of inadequacy has been my family life, and it took a while and a lot of diagnoses to recognize why. Within our family, we have ADHD, anxiety, depression, autism, and now some version of a schizoid disorder. One of my kids, I'm like, wow, this is a mental health soup. So I'm grateful to have an excuse, maybe, but even in the moments, my inner voice will say, oh, they're going to mock you. They're going to say this is all because of your bad parenting. And I always have that voice come up, but I shove it back and I say, well, so what? There are so many other people out there with mental health challenges. If I speak, they'll know they're not alone. I have to do it. Yeah. So there's always a conflict in my brain between hiding or standing out and being authentic and true. Do you find that to be true for yourself as well? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just barely getting started in, talking to podcasters or putting out a website or things like that. And honestly, I am scared. Like it is scary. I know it's what I want to do. I know it's what I'm supposed to do, but it is scary. So I guess that's a good message to anyone. Like, it's not, maybe we see people doing things that we think are great and we think, oh, she's so wonderful, she can do this, but you don't know what she was afraid of or what was hard for her in the background. Totally. Yeah.
I'm afraid of these lines on my neck. I have a retreat. We're recording this before my retreat. I'm afraid. I just think it's important to express fears too. I'm afraid I'll show up and people will say, whoa, she's a lot heavier than I thought. Influencers should not be heavy. I have to squash these negative voices. I just shove them back and I'm like, well, I'm giving some other heavier person permission to do this as well. I have a friend, we both have, Maggie. I always admired how she could let her house be destroyed by a ton of kids who would come and visit. And of course she cleaned it up later, but I thought, she's giving me permission to have a messy house. And now when I have a messy house, I say, hey, I'm giving some other woman permission. So I kind of like to come forward with flaws with that story.
I do too. Yeah.
Giving other people permission,
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So you and I have this funny story. I know you've done some research with sexuality. I don't think it's your focus, but tell the story of that book club from long ago. Something I said that shocked you and how it may have affected you.
I don't even know if we're thinking of the same one.
Oh, okay. Well, I
do have a memory of you that I still about Kegel exercises. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about something different?
No, sure. Tell that one. I'm sorry. And
I don't know. I just remember somehow we were talking about, a group of women. I think usually our book club ended up on childbirth at some point, right? Like it always does. But I just remember we were talking about doing Kegels to strengthen, your pelvic muscles or whatever. And you said, well, I can't do Kegel exercises. They turn me on.
Oh! Oh my gosh.
But then a couple of minutes later, the conversation continued and you said, well, I'm doing some right now. And after the reveal, after you saying they turned you on, we were like, oh my word.
Everyone, that's where you get authenticity is one thing, but adding a filter is good too. Okay, well,
but I don't remember which story you mean.
Oh, Okay, well, everyone who listens to my podcast knows that marriage has been tricky for me. So I remember a
Mm-hmm.
book club where I told the group that the only two reasons I was still in my marriage were
Mm.
finances and sex. And I didn't think anything of it. I was surprised when you and I spoke 3 years ago that you had remembered that story and it
Mm.
had inspired you. But am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that, but I do remember that you always seemed comfortable with your sexuality. Like you made it known that you enjoyed sex and that that was fine. And not all women do that. That was an authentic part of you, and I appreciated it.
And I'm sure it made a lot of other people uncomfortable too.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be uncomfortable if it's moving you towards growth, right?
Right, right.
If it's challenging the thoughts that you have.
So when you started grad school, you were interested in exploring sexuality because we talked earlier about body image
Mm-hmm.
and being authentic with sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go there a little bit. I remember in a book club, you saying your mom had taught you that sex was a chore. How have you learned to be more authentic around the topic of sexuality? Big question.
That's a big
Sorry,
question. I
Amber.
know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put that with the body image piece. So I can go either direction.
Oh, okay. Pick one. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess what I was just saying about you is probably leads perfectly into that, because I think that we do grow up sometimes in cultures that don't value women's sexuality, or they shame women's sexuality, or they tell women your sexuality is supposed to be this or this or this, or like they put it in a box and things. And that can cause a lot of conflict in a person's mind as they try to figure out where they're supposed to be in that. So hearing from women who are like, I am a sexual being, I enjoy my sexual relationship and I'm fine with that, that's a good step forward. That's just being comfortable with
People
acknowledging
talking
that
about
you
it.
are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, we have so many concepts of what a good mom is and a good
Mm-hmm.
woman is. Um, I feel like that can be a big topic in some cultures more than others. But how do you combat that? What does it mean for you to be a good mom or a good wife? Or should we cast that thought out altogether?
Yeah, that's actually one of the main things that I often talk about with women is I think we get these shoulds. Like shoulds have come up a couple times in this interview, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we have these ideas of what we should, quote unquote, should be doing, or what we're supposed to be doing. And a lot of those go to motherhood or womanhood. I mean, you could list off how many things that a woman should be doing. You should cook a good meal. You should have the laundry done, folded, put away. You should look good while you're doing everything you're doing. You should be able to do the fourth grade math that your kids needs help with. I mean, if we try to live up to all those things that we think other people want us to do, we can't, because there's a million other people who all have ideas of what we should be doing. You'll never live up to it. And so
No.
you're just doing yourself a disservice when you try to.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that you probably want as a mother or as a wife or as a woman that are good and valuable things. So you almost could say, I should do this because it's good and valuable, but you just kind of need to take that step back and say, why am I doing this? Am I doing it so that other people see me as good? Or am I doing it because it feels genuinely good to me right now?
Yeah. Wow. So really it comes back to intuitive wisdom, like what's right for me. Because we all
Yeah.
have different experiences, lives, talents, thoughts. And what's right for me right now is not stressing out about X, Y, and Z and playing lots of board games. And the way I was raised, my mom might frown on that. I should have my house spotless first. And I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to.
But there was that should, right?
Hmm.
I should have my house spotless.
Yeah. But to my mom's, I guess, uh, to acknowledge how she's changed. She knows now that I don't value the same things. She doesn't say anything. She's doing really such a good job of seeing what I do value and praising that. So I love that she's shifted.
That's cool. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, so Amber, you're helping women with authenticity and these important topics in the world. Tell us more about what you're doing these days online and of course you're working towards your PhD, but you have a program that helps with
Right.
this.
Yeah. The program's not released yet. I'm hoping to release it in May, and it will walk through. So, I've got a website that's got articles around all of this that people can read, but I also recognize that not everybody wants to get online and read a whole bunch of things because we're all busy. But so, yeah, I'm working on creating a course that really looks at like 5 or 6 ways that we hinder our own authenticity. Some of them we've talked about today. The shoulds is actually one of my areas. Comparison is one of the areas. Body image or objectification is one of the areas. Emotional fusion is one of the areas. The one that we haven't talked about is gendered expectations, kind of the box. Well, I guess we did touch on that. The box we put ourselves in, like, I'm a woman, so therefore I must ... whatever that is.
Right.
And how each of those really, when we allow those things to be happening in our lives, it really does diminish our authenticity. And then just how that can limit our ability to connect with other people. Like we talked about, when you don't feel authentic, you're going to hide a little bit of who you are so that other people don't really get to know you at the level that they could. And you miss out on those opportunities to really form deep and meaningful relationships, whether that's with your spouse or your partner or your children or your friends or even God, whoever it is. You're limiting that ability when you hide who you are. So that's kind of my goal, is to help people see the ways that they're doing that, because we're all doing it. I can see it in myself. I do it all the time. I'm challenging it, but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think the more we can recognize it.
Yeah. Answering the question, who am I? And then how am I hiding that from other people? Whew, that's a lifelong question.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
That's neat.
But it's a good one, right? Like it's a fun one to be on, instead of letting other people decide who you are. Why don't you decide for yourself?
Yeah. And then for me, it really comes back to, well, I'm going to be the person that feels the best. It doesn't feel good to clean my house all the time. Playing King Domino feels great. I love that game. So following what feels good, and to have the permission to do the same. You know what inspires me the most to keep doing this is hoping my daughters in particular, but my sons as well, will grow up to do the same thing. Breaking the pattern of pressure and shoulds and shame and all of that stuff that keeps us inauthentic, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to follow you on social media, what's your Instagram handle? I'm
on Instagram under amber.a.price.
Oh, cool.
So Amber A Price with the 2 dots between it. Mm-hmm. And then my website is just amberaprice.com.
Oh, easy peasy. Thank you.
Easy. Yep.
All right. One last piece of advice for our listeners, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay. I think when it all boils down, like when I boil down anything I'd want to say, I think it comes down to that you are an incredible person. Each woman who is listening to this is an incredible person, and she has unique abilities and talents and gifts to offer to the people around her, whether that's her family or the neighbors or her friends or the community at large. And so don't hide who you are. Let other people see who you are, and bless other people's lives with that. It'll make you happier, but it will also really bless the people around you. And that matters. If we all did that, how much beauty and joy would we be putting out into the world if we would really use our gifts and talents to do that?
Yeah. Huge question. Let's all answer that for ourselves in the days ahead. How much would the world be blessed if we would actually be who we really are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gives me chills. Well, Amber, this was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was wonderful.
Take care. If you enjoy this podcast, you have to check out the Vibrant Happy Women Club. It's my monthly group coaching program where we take all this material to the next level and get you the results that will blow your mind. Join me in the Vibrant Happy Women Club at jenriday.com/join.